So how can we set up Claude Code MCPs? What even is an MCP? What are they? And when should we be using them? And also, crucially, when should we not be using them? Because there's a lot of use cases where people try and use MCPs and they end up burning through all of their Claude Code usage. And you've seen horror stories where people have to then upgrade to the $200 a month plan. And I'm going to show you in this video exactly why that happens, how you can get away with a lower plan on Claude Code and still get the same amount of work done when you need to be using MCPs and all of that. Okay, so there are three main things I want to go through in this video because MCPs can become incredibly technical. It can become a very sort of developer language. So I'm going to try and explain to you very, very simply what an MCP is in plain English so you can understand it at the level that you need to understand it. We're all business owners here. If you're a business owner, you're trying to use Claude Code or agents, I'm going to help you understand basically all you need to know without going into the nitty-gritty technical detail because you need to get on and start getting work done with AI. Secondly, I'm going to show you how Claude Code actually connects to the right tools. I'll try and do a walkthrough demonstration and show you an example of one. And then finally, I want to show you when MCPs help you and when you actually need to skip them. So very, very simply, an MCP is a way of connecting an agent to various different tools. Now, I'm going to cover in just a second what an agent is. If you're confused, what Claude Code actually is, how it works, how it's different to chatbots and anything like that, I will cover that in just a second, so just hang around for that. But essentially, I'm assuming a lot of you understand what Claude Code is because you clicked on this video about Claude Code. What an MCP allows you to do is get your agent to read data and write data to various platforms. Okay, so you could have information inside Notion, ClickUp, Asana, GitHub, Slack, anything like that. And as long as these companies here have an MCP, it means that this terminal or this agent can then actually send data to it, read data for it, or transfer data from one platform to the other platform. So, for example, I could actually get data in Notion and I could transform that data and put it somewhere else like Asana, or I could put it into ClickUp. Okay, so here's an example. My company, we made a software, and actually let's talk about this as well because I want to show you why you need to be using MCPs when you're building apps with Claude Code. So a lot of you are probably building internal tools with Claude Code, you're probably building external tools for Claude Code. Maybe you're trying to build tools that you can sell to your existing customers. And this is kind of what I wanted to talk about with our companies. About 2 years ago, I was mostly just selling. We had a higher ticket offer, training companies on importing and getting set up with AI in their businesses, right? We still offer this as part of our service. However, we ended up building a software product that we now sell and is actually probably mostly our core offer, really, which we've done over £400,000 in the last 12 months in annual recurring revenue. And that was only possible because I built it with AI. So it's an additional product that I could build that kind of uses information from all around the business and allows us to bring in more customers and have subscription revenue that is lower ticket than high ticket products inside our business. It's a product that we build once, we sell it multiple times. Now, I'll do some more videos on how to actually use it, what it is, because it can actually help you as well. But this is the power of using Claude Code and AI, is building tools that you can serve and cross-sell to your existing customers. Now, with that being said, a lot of the work we do is now done with developers. So I have 2 developers working for me so we can scale it, we can build more stuff, and they also use AI to build. This here is a tool called Linear, and this essentially is a project planning tool. You can see all of the different bug fixes and new features that we've deployed in the last 30 days, right? So 42 different deployments of updates for the software, and I'll show you what the software is at the end. But all of this stuff here used to be written by typing and creating information manually, right? So a lot of the work that you do day to day is inside softwares. You have subscriptions to various different platforms like Loom, for example, Linear, Slack, Jira, ClickUp, all of these different things. You have to go in and then create a task for your team to complete the work, right? So I do this every single day. And instead of me having to come in here, write an issue, write a description, add some images and screenshots and understanding what's kind of going on and then assigning it to people inside my team, all I need to do now is actually communicate with Linear through Claude Code. So I can send all the messages to Claude Code and then it can add something here. So let me just do a quick demonstration for you. Okay, so I currently have open here Cursor, okay? And I've booted up Claude Code inside the terminal, and we'll do some videos on what Claude Code is and how to get it set up as well if you guys would like to see. Just leave it down below in the description. Now what I can do is I can actually do /MCP, okay? And I can see these are all the different things that I have got connected to Claude Code. Now I'm going to quickly demonstrate how we can actually connect Linear to Claude Code. And it's very, very simple. All you need to do is come onto Google. If you just search for whatever platform it is that you're using, search for Linear MCP. You could do ClickUp MCP, okay, and they have an MCP server, okay. So for example, I'm just going to come onto Linear MCP, And we're just going to literally just copy all of these instructions. And this is the power of using AI agents, is you really don't need to understand any of this stuff. We just copy it and we say, please set this MCP server up if you haven't already got it. Okay, and I paste it in there and I hit enter. And now what Claude Code is going to do is set up and connect that MCP. Now, while it's doing that, let me just come into here quickly because there are a few things which we need to cover here. First of all, really briefly, what is an AI agent? So you'll remember a few years ago when ChatGPT first came out, and by the way, I'll show you what happens to this in just a second, so stick around and we'll finish this tutorial in a second. When ChatGPT came out, the first time it came out, it was basically just it was a chatbot, right? You would send a message and then the language model on the other side would respond, okay? So you could say, how tall is Mount Everest? And it would tell you how tall it was. But what people realized incredibly quickly was that the AI was getting incorrect or not up-to-date knowledge because of when it was trained. So then everybody started asking, can I train it on my own company data, like upload PDFs and stuff, right? And can I let it scrape the web and find up-to-date information? So the next update that came to ChatGPT was web search. So ChatGPT could then search the web to find additional information. That was essentially the first step that we took as humanity into AI agents. And all AI agents are chatbots with tools. Okay, so think about it like this. If a user sends a message into an AI agent, a few things can happen. First of all, it will be able to ingest various bits of information. So you could send it voice, for example, you could send it an image, or you could send it text. Okay, once it has that, it then makes a decision on what it needs to do. Okay, and it can just essentially loop, and it can respond, and it can say, well, based on this user's request, I think I need to do this. And then it can loop again and say, okay, now I think I need to do that. Let me just check and see if there's any other information that I have that might help me solve this without doing that task. Yes, there is, no, there isn't. And then it can keep on looping and making a decision on what is the next step that it needs to take. Finally, it may decide, okay, I need to go ahead and use a tool. So for example, I could say to it, can you create an issue in Linear that explains this, that for a certain bug fix, right? And then it will make a decision that actually it needs to use and execute a task, right? Now, an AI agent has basic tasks available to it. It can write files on your computer. It can read files on your computer. It can run commands on the terminal, so it can go ahead and find files. It can create and run Python scripts, for example. It can also internally search the web as well. It has its own ability to search the web. However, MCP kind of opens that up to everything else. What MCP does is it says, well, actually, now we have this tool that can read and write files and do information. It can actually connect to all of these different platforms. So it could connect to Notion, it could connect to Jira. So now suddenly you can understand that if I have a task that I want to get done, instead of manually going into the platform and clicking around and learning the UI and understanding which buttons to click, I can just talk to the agent and the agent can go ahead and just add the information for me. And it kind of does it through the back end of an application. Okay, so that is kind of what an agent does and how an agent kind of works. And there's some nuances to it and there's some more stuff to it, but essentially it's you send a message, it thinks through what needs to be done, uses a tool, and then sends information and puts it somewhere online. So you can see here, Linear MCP server has been added. Next step, I need to authenticate. So what I need to do first of all is if I do /MCP inside Claude Code, now what you can see is down here, we scroll all the way down, it can't actually show me the new MCP that I've added. I've got context 7, post hog, and then that's basically it. Okay, so what we actually need to do is reset our Claude Code session. So we're going to do /exit, and then you can see here it's given us this Claude resume. We're going to copy that Claude resume, paste it back in, and then it's just going to continue the conversation from where we left off. But now if we do /MCP, you can see we have Linear has now shown up here. But it needs authentication. So in order to authenticate it, all we need to do is hit enter on our computer and then hit authenticate, and it opens up an authentication. Okay, it just allows you to approve a connection. That's all it is. Okay, it's very similar when you try and log into an account and you do sign in via Google. It's the same thing. Now it's just saying Claude would like to request access to Linear. So all we need to do is click on approve. Wait for this to load, authentication successful. We come back into here, authentication successful, connected to Linear. So we could do /MCP, and you can see Linear is now connected, and there are 33 different tools. So what this basically means now, right, is I send a message to my AI agent, it has its own tools, but it now has 33 additional tools that are specific to Linear. Now, A lot of you are going to click away being like, oh, that makes sense, I understand it, I'm going to go ahead and set this up for myself. But this is where people can make a huge mistake. This is where things can break. This is where you can lose company data. This is where you need to be very careful about security. And this is also where you can actually build apps that don't work, that break, that churn users, and there's a whole host of problems that can appear. Now you have this set up with this basic understanding. What you need to understand now is these 33 tools is a lot more information for the AI. Okay, so we can view these tools, so it can do things like get attachment, create attachment, list comments, or save comments. If we click on enter on here, you can see a little bit more information about these things. Right, we can come on to I don't know, like list comments, for example. So there's a whole lot of stuff that it can actually do. Now, if we just exit all of that, I want you to look at this thing here. This says 1 million context. Now, we'll do more videos about context and agents with context in a minute. But basically, that is essentially short-term memory. Okay, think about it like when I talk to you. If you go to a restaurant and I say, "Here's," you go to a Chinese restaurant, right? And it has 150 items on the menu, and you need to decide what to pick, and it's impossible to decide because there's so much stuff. By the time you get to the end of the menu, you've forgotten what's at the start of the menu, right? Or you forget bits in the middle. Context is the same thing. This can remember up to 1 million tokens. Tokens, think of them just like letters. They're not, but think of them like letters. So there's a million letters that this can understand or remember, okay? If I give it too many letters, it's going to start to become forgetful, okay? Equally, if you actually go on to, let's just Google this, right? If you go on Claude API pricing, okay? The way these language models work is they work on tokens, okay? So for example, the latest model from Claude is Opus 4.7. If I send it 1 million tokens, in other words, if I fill up all of this context, right, if I send in 1 million tokens, it'll cost me $5, okay? And to get a response back, if it writes 1 million tokens, it'll cost me $10. Okay, so just by filling up this context, if I wasn't using the Claude Code subscription, I would be burning a lot of money. Okay, now at the moment, Claude Code is heavily subsidized, which means you're not going to end up burning lots of money. But that's why you see a lot of people talking about my Claude Code usage has been, I keep burning through my Claude Code usage and I get rate limited. I have to wait until 6 p.m. before I can continue using it. The downside with agents and tools like this is because they can solve a lot of problems for people, because now they can have a chatbot which can do tasks for them, which I'll show you a demonstration in just a second, it means that they get addicted to doing lots and lots of work. You do more and more work in a day, but you burn through these tokens because you're being very inefficient with the tokens. There's a lot of other impacts that happen, which I'll talk through as we go through this. But let's just give you an example of how this MCP works. So let's just say, for example, I would like to create a issue inside my development issues inside Linear, put it into the start as a priority and just say test issue. Just give it a test issue for now and assign it to Hussein. Okay, and what we're going to do now is I could say, for example, read information from Linear and update an issue or create a new project, for example. What it's going to do is it's going to think for a second on, okay, what is this guy needing to do? Now it's calling Linear. So it's calling Linear 3 different times. You can see here it's used 780 tokens so far, and now it's used 1,000 tokens. So you can see how quickly it starts to burn through tokens, right? And this is because it's now trying to use an MCP. Now, MCPs inherently are very context bloaty, right? An MCP is essentially giving the AI, here's a lot of information on how you can use Linear every single time you send a message. And it just dumps in maybe 10,000 or 50,000 tokens of context. So every time you use Linear, now you're just massively using up a lot more context, okay? But you can just see quickly inside here, this is the test issue that we just created it, and you can see here, oops, it assigned it to Hussein, who works for me in my company, right? So now what we can do is we just click this, or actually what we can do is we can just say, for example, can you delete that issue for me? And now what it can do is it can go ahead and go in and delete that issue, okay? So you need to be very careful, because if you don't understand or you don't use these things correctly and put in proper guardrails, what can actually happen is I can say delete this thing and accidentally I can delete and wipe the entire thing inside Linear. It's just a backdoor into it, and now it can just delete stuff. So here you go, it doesn't expose hard delete for any issues, right? So I'm going to have to manually delete it, because obviously that's a risk. You can delete everything, okay? So you can see how now much quicker that was. Instead of writing out the full issue in here and clicking create issue, I can very quickly create new projects, okay? So that's kind of how MCPs work. Right, let's just move on a little bit, right? What is the problem that these MCPs solve? I think you probably kind of understand it a little bit now, but there's two aspects of how you can use agents. I can use Claude Code to do stuff for me and become like a personal assistant, which I'm guessing most business owners are probably starting to use Claude Code for. So as opposed to using software by logging in and clicking buttons, I can now go into Claude Code and I can say, do the work for me, and then I can say, off it goes and does it, and it spends 10 minutes thinking about it, and I can go ahead and make a cup of tea, or I can work on another project while it's doing that at the same time. The other thing that you can do with it now is you can say, well, now my Claude Code understands stuff about my business and it can read this other information. I can design an app for my business. Now, we have a software that we've done over £400,000 in annual recurring revenue that we built with AI, and a lot of the people who use it, because it helps people design tools with AI, I'll show you in a second how you can use it, a lot of the people that come in who need help with it, first thing they ask me is, how do I know what to build for my business? And what you can actually do now is you can connect all these things and you could say, okay, well, what do you think we should build? The problem with that is it doesn't really work that well, because it has to go ahead and every time you say, what do I need to build? Every time you start a new chat, so for example here, right, if I do exit, and I just do Claude, and I reboot up Claude, and I could say, what were we talking about last time, right? It has basic memory, so it might be able to find it, but a lot of the time, if you're working on really, really complicated things, it can be quite difficult for it to understand or remember, okay, you're building this really complicated project, all the information on it. Here you go, I don't have a memory record for a last specific conversation, okay? So it doesn't actually know what's kind of going on, right? And that's part of the problem with using MCPs and saying, what can my business do? But you could say, for example, can you read linear MCP and tell me what the latest bug fix that we just shipped was into production? And then it can go ahead and it can read that information for me, okay? So it can help you pull information and then do things with that information, retrieve information quicker and put information out there quicker. And there's a lot of benefits to that, but it doesn't necessarily solve every single problem. The other thing is, if you're trying to build an app or a software for your business and you're using company data to help you design it and say, okay, well, this is kind of a problem we're trying to solve in our company, let's use that to plan out a new app. Every single time we send a message and this context limit starts to get reached, it's going to start forgetting things, it's going to start making mistakes and breaking things inside your app, okay? Because the MCPs are really, really bloated. So that is how to set up your MCP. Now, what actually is it? Now, I started to put all these things in here, which kind of explains it in a lot more complicated technical detail, but I ended up refilming this video because it was too technical. Very simply, if you send a message to an AI agent, it can then go ahead and read stuff from different platforms, if it were to use an API, right? With an with an API, this basically means all of these different platforms have to write their own connections into the AI. It's really incredibly inefficient and very hard to set up. An MCP is just like a universal plug. The best way to think about MCPs are iPhone chargers. Okay, so we used to have lightning connectors for iPhone chargers. We used to have micro USB for Android phones. Okay, then the EU said it must have a USB-C charger lead. That way, every single phone that's produced, most computers that are produced, everything's standardized on USB-C, because that way, all that the user needs to do is buy a lead that's USB-C and it works with everything. Okay, and that's essentially what an MCP is. An agent can connect to the MCP server and it's the same connection every single time. It's very, very easy to connect to, and then the MCP goes ahead and connects to those different platforms. Okay, so it's essentially a USB-C charge lead. So we've just gone through a full setup of how to actually connect Claude Code. But here's the thing, why is it that setting up these MCPs will burn your subscription? Basically, it all comes down to this context. Okay, if I'm designing an app or I'm building something for my business, I have to now spend all of my tokens and credits inside Claude Code, reading all this information, understanding what we need to build, and then putting it in here and then creating a plan of what to build. And the problem is, every single time I come back to it or I restart a conversation and I'm designing an app and I'm using data from external tools, I have to then continue my conversation. When the conversation gets too full, I will have to compact the conversation, and as we compact the conversation, we are going to then burn more tokens and lose specific information. And that just means it becomes harder to build and harder to design different products. So here's what we've done to actually build apps more efficiently. We've designed a tool called CodeSpring, okay, and let me just walk you through exactly how CodeSpring works. So if you're a company and you're trying to design various tools for your business, all you need to do is start a brand new project inside CodeSpring, and you can design it out visually in here and see what are you trying to build, what are you trying to design, and then once you've got your design ready, you can then get Claude Code to read the design. So for example, I could say, I can actually come here and I'll show you, we're setting this up, this will be live probably by the end of today, we're actually setting up integrations. So I could, for example, connect various different tools into CodeSpring. I could use that information to design a new app. Right, so I'll show you an example of an app that I designed. So I built this AI B-roll maker app, okay? And all I need to do is just talk to the AI in the chatbot and say, okay, this is what I'm trying to build, this is what I'm trying to design, and it will add features for me and walk me through how to build it. I'll do a demonstration in just a second. I can then see, okay, this is the app that I'm building, these are the features that I'm creating. Let me just show you, okay? I want to build a CRM for my business that pulls in data from my payment platform. I use WAP for payments. Actually, let's just use Stripe for payments because most people probably use Stripe, right? And what it will actually do now is it will say, okay, well, based on what this guy needs to do, let's go ahead and design an app for what he's trying to build, right? And I can then say, for example, you can see here I've got linear set up, but it's just gone ahead and it's created, okay, this is the product you're working on. I've got linear set up, so I could say, can you actually read from linear some of the issues that I have on, like, you know, the task and the product that I'm trying to build. These are the different features that it's just designed for my product. Okay, you can see how quickly we can start to mock things up. And it sort of templates these things, and everything in here is editable. I could then say, for example, here we go, here's the target audience that this is going to go after. I could then say, for example, you can see here it's going to have customer profile, subscription management, invoices, revenue dashboard, alerts and dunning. Okay, I could then say, let's say, for example, revenue dashboard, right click, add to context, and I could say, can you just figure out how this is going to work? Because we are pulling in information, and I actually want to pull in information from my ad platform as well, so it's going to connect to Hyros. So Hyros has an API. I want to pull that information in as well, and I want to show that in the dashboard. So I can see the revenue, the sales, and I can also see where those sales have come from. And I could, if we want to, put it into research mode, which means it's now going to go ahead and search the web. It's going to look for more information. It's going to find documentation and make sure that it's designing those features properly and making sure that those features then fit into your app. Now, this also works the other way around. Let me just go ahead and allow web search. So this here that you're talking to is also an agent, right? The agent can go ahead and do tasks. You can see here it's updated the project. So it's updated features, for example. It's, you know, updating audience, updating tech stack. Now it's searching the web, and I can see this is the different web pages that it's reading. It's getting all of this information, and then what I can do is I can say, okay, let's add this to context again. Can you just add some information to this feature on these other updates and how all these are working and how it pulls in data? Just fill out some more context because I don't quite know how to build this. And then what it'll do is it'll do some more research and figure out how to actually add that to that feature. Okay, so let me just pause this and come back in a second once that's done. Cool, so you can see that it's now added some notes on how that feature works. I could say, for example, are there any other features we need to add to this to make it work? Right, and as you go, you can start to read the mind map and see, okay, well, this is the notes that it's taken, and then you can start to understand how things work and put it together. But basically, it becomes like a designing tool to help you design new features for your app. Equally, if you have something, you can actually import it into this and start visualizing it. Now, once you're ready to start building it, you can just click on this and you can connect to an AI agent like Claude Code, for example. So let me just walk you through how you would do that. So let's say, for example, I want to go ahead and connect this. All I need to do is we're going to create a new terminal inside here, and this is called a CLI. Now, the reason we use CLI is it's essentially the same thing as a MCP, but it allows us to build more efficiently, okay? So instead of dumping a lot of information into Claude Code and just making it like bloat all of the context, it's a lot more efficient, so you're not burning through as many tokens when you're using Claude Code. So in other words, when you're designing an app and you're building something for your company, you design it inside CodeSpring first, and you can see here it's created all the documentation that it needs on how to build it, okay? All of that is stored in here visually for you to understand how does it actually work. I could say, for example, can you add some sub-features on how this revenue dashboard works, and then can you create some Kanban tasks that the agent needs to tick off and complete to start building it. Okay, and it's going to go ahead and add that information to this. And what it will actually do is it will create specific tasks that the AI needs to do to build those features. Okay, so instead of actually, instead of actually having to describe and remember all of this stuff in your head for the plan of the app that you're actually building, all you need to do now is store that information inside CodeSpring, and then once you've got all of the tasks inside CodeSpring, the agent can then just build from that. I'm going to come back into here and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to run this to install the CodeSpring CLI. I may already have it installed. I'm going to come back to here, connect to the AI agent. I'm going to click on this, copy this code, and then it's going to ask me to log in. There we go, it's now logged in, it's successful. Now I'm going to come back and then click on next, and I'm going to make sure that I have the skills, because what a skill is basically it tells the AI, or it tells Claude Code exactly how to use CodeSpring. So I'm going to hit on that. I'm going to say yes to install it. Just like that, I'm going to say I'm using Claude Code, and I'm going to hit enter, enter, enter. Now it's installed all of that. Now what we need to do is just run this command, and we're going to say yes, yes. And you can see inside CodeSpring I've got two different workspaces. I've got my personal workspace and my CodeSpring workspace, which is the company workspace. So you can see, for example, also here you can see it's now created 12 tasks that the AI can kick off and start building. So I can see here I have my personal workspace and a company workspace. So we have actually a business plan which allows you to work with your team members. And when you work with your team members, you can invite them, you can invite clients, and you can do a lot more. You have a lot more credits with the business plan. I'm just going to say 1 because the app that I'm trying to build is inside here. And you can see, okay, it's now listed all the different projects that I'm working on. Business CRM, I have the business CRM. I could say 1, this is what we're trying to build. And I could say, can you just list out the Kanban tasks that we have to build inside this project? And can you just move one of them from to do to in progress? I'm just doing a demonstration. And all you would do, actually, we need to probably, let's just do that. We need to do Claude, open up Claude Code. And we say, for example, can you see the CodeSpring CLI? And now we are able to get Claude Code to read from this plan, right? So as opposed to just dumping a lot of information from all of this stuff, all of the different platforms directly into Claude Code, we can put it into here, design our app and build it up and visualize it and see, okay, this is what we're building. And I would recommend spending more time actually talking to it and designing the features and then visualizing it and then obviously reading through what this does. We've got loads of other tools you can do. So you can add like wireframes, generate product requirement docs, you can add sub-features. There's a lot of stuff that you can do, and we'll do more tutorials on how that works. You can run Scout, which is automated competitor research, and all of those different things. But it basically now means we have a full visual plan in here, lock it down in here, and then get Claude Code to read from this plan, and you'll burn less tokens, and you'll be able to have more control over what you're building. So you can see, yes, it can read it. Okay, can you just read for the business CRM with Stripe integration app? I'm doing a demonstration for YouTube. Can you just move one of the Kanban tasks from to do to in progress? And really what you would do here is you'd say, okay, I want to start working on building this app. I want to build this specific feature, the revenue dashboard. And then obviously you can see here, our planning isn't yet complete, but if we're ready to complete it, then that's fine. And then you would say, okay, go ahead and start building that feature. And now what's happening is Claude Code knows exactly what to build because it's just reading based off these Kanban tasks. Rather, there you go, it's just moved something to in progress. So it would be building based off the Kanban tasks and just ticking these things off rather than just building by constantly pinging over here, getting information, and then reading that information. You have to chat back and forth and design what to build. You design what you want to have built first, visually inside here. You can map everything out. You can pull in all your information. You can design features, and then from there you can get Claude Code to actually read it and start building your app. Okay. The other thing you can do with CodeSpring as well, you can come into GitHub, and you can say, okay, I have this app here, and I'm going to come in and I'm going to come back into CodeSpring. I'm going to create a new project, and I'm going to say, can you just read this GitHub project and can you create a visualization for it? And it's going to go ahead and do that for me. So for example, if you have a code base that you've built where things are getting messy or confused and you don't understand how it works, and you've built it in Replit, for example, or you've built it somewhere that you don't like, you can then import it directly into CodeSpring. You can then visualize how it works and then design new features into it, lock down things you don't want to have broken, create Kanban tasks, sign off on it, and then get Claude Code to read your plan, and it will just go ahead and update and build new features for you. So you can see that AI B-roll maker, it knows exactly what it is that we are building. Let's just close that. And then what it's going to do is it's going to look through the entire setup of this and it's going to list out what are the different features that we have for this product. And it's just going to put them all here. So you can see we have the ability to create and edit notes, search notes, sync and cloud storage, loads of different things that we can do. So what about any other features on how to generate content, for example? and then it can go ahead and continue to add plans. Or I could say, for example, how does the tech stack work? Right, and all of that information is now stored in here, and then I could start designing new features. Add these features by reading the GitHub project, make sure you find all the information, add it to the board, and then can you also add the tech stack as well. And then once it's in here, I can go ahead and I can design new features. And you can either use the agent to design features, or you can plan new features yourself. Now, if you want to grab access to CodeSpring, the link is down below. We have loads of new features coming out. There's lots of more information on this channel about how CodeSpring works, what you can use it for. If you have any questions, please leave them down below. CodeSpring is currently available for the Pro plan, which is everything you see here, is £49 per month. The link is down below. All you need to do, let me just go ahead, and I'm just going to deny this for now and end the video here. But all you need to do is click the link down below, create your account on CodeSpring, and then if you come into the billing, you just need to go ahead and select the monthly plan for the Pro plan. If you're on the starter plan, you're not going to have access to half of the different tools. The business plan will allow you to go ahead and create an organization. Inside an organization, you will be able to invite different team members. So you can work up to 10 different team members. You can create different teams, loads of different stuff you can do. Plus you have a lot more credits as well to start building in there. So hopefully this video was useful to you guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Now you know how to set up Claude Code MCPs, you know what they are, you know when to use them, you know why you shouldn't be just dumping all of this information inside Claude Code. And obviously we'd love you to go ahead and support us and sign up to CodeSpring if you have any questions on how CodeSpring works. But if you're designing products for your business, you're non-technical, you don't know how things work, things keep breaking every time you build a feature and it breaks something else, all you need to do is grab a CodeSpring subscription, visualize your current code base, design new features in there, map Kanban tasks, and then get Claude Code to build from a plan that you approve, rather than just letting the AI build everything for you without knowing what it's doing. See you guys in the next video.